2.
Live from MMA Studios, this is what's going down in MMA. As always, welcome back with Geoff and Eric, of course, here with you to break down what's going down in MMA. Today, we're going to be going over UFC 132 predictions, but first, here's your news update.
Now for your UFC update, perennial contender Clay the Carpenter Guida took on former WEC lightweight champion Anthony Showtime Pettis last week for the Ultimate Fighter Season 13 finale. Clay Guida used great takedowns to earn a unanimous decision. With the loss, Anthony Pettis loses his #1 contender status for the lightweight title. UFC President Dana White has just announced that all main event fights from now on will be 5 rounds, whether it's for a title or not. Dana White also announced recently that Michael the Count Bisping will take on Jason Mayhem Miller at the end of the year. Both are coaches of this season of The Ultimate Fighter in fall. Returning to action this fall, Matt Hughes will take on Season 1 winner of The Ultimate Fighter, Diego the Dream Sanchez. Diego is coming off of a win to Martin Kampmann back from March, and Matt Hughes is coming off of a loss to BJ Penn. Also returning to action this summer for his first title defense, John Bones Jones will take on Quinton Rampage Jackson. Rampage is coming off of a 2-fight winning streak to Lyoto Machida and Matt Hamill. He was cleared by the doctors to fight this fall for the main event of UFC 135 against Jones. And we'll see if Rampage wants his belt back.
I want my belt back!
Thank you, Geoff, as always, for that MMA update. Now, guys, of course, it's time to get down to it. UFC 132, Cruz versus Faber. We're going to break down the top 3 fights, and of course, the first of which we're going to talk about is Tito Ortiz versus Ryan Bader. Now, Geoff, of course, Tito has been losing quite a few fights here. In fact, I believe his last win was against Ken Shamrock, if I'm not mistaken, his last win. Actually, Ryan Bader, of course, also coming off a loss to the current champion, Johnny Bones Jones. So, really, for the most part, how do you see this one going down?
Well, as you mentioned, Tito Ortiz hasn't won a fight in a long time. It was actually since 2006. So it's been about 5 years since he's won a fight. He was a former light heavyweight champion, of course. He is a legend, but he hasn't been looking good lately. And Ryan Bader has only lost his 1 fight to the current champ, John Jones. I don't see Ryan Bader looking bad in this fight. I actually see Ryan Bader handing Tito Ortiz another loss, unfortunately.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, a lot of people believe that this may be the straw that breaks the camel's back, actually, as this loss may be just what it takes to actually have Tito Ortiz taken out of the UFC. Now, of course, for our next fight that we're going to discuss our predictions on, of course, we do have
Wanderlei Silva versus Chris Lieben. Now, Wanderlei Silva has been out for a while. He hasn't fought in since February of 2010. Which was in Sydney, Australia. He fought Michael Bisping at his debut at 185 at middleweight, and he won a close decision. So he's been active. He had a knee surgery. Chris Lieben, though, coming off of a loss to Brian Stann back in January. But Chris Lieben's been more active. So maybe Wanderlei might have some ring rust or injuries might play something coming into this fight. But I'm really hoping that, Wanderlei can win. But I'm thinking Chris Lieben might have the advantage just because he's been more active. What do you think?
Yeah, that's always an interesting thing. A lot of people do talk about ring rust. It's actually a popular discussion among people, though, to say, what's really the give and take between talent and ring rust. Right. Also, the odds makers actually do have Wanderlei Silva as a slight favorite. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that one. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be it will be a good fight, of course. I do think, though, in the end, I think this one is going to go to. I do think it's going to go to Wanderlei, though. Actually, I think talent's gonna outweigh that ring rust there a little bit. Yeah. Now, of course, with our last fight of the evening, the main event of the evening, actually, of course, we do have Uriah Faber versus Dominick Cruz. Now, of course, this is a fight, not their first fight, of course, first fight at this weight. This is going to be at bantamweight. Their previous fight, of course, at featherweight, where Uriah Faber did win via submission. And so it's going to be interesting to see with this one being at bantamweight and for the title. Geoff, how do you see this one going down?
Well, I see Dominick Cruz winning this fight. I mean, Dominick Cruz hasn't looked bad in any fight except for that one Uriah Faber loss. He got caught with that guillotine, lost in the first round, and Uriah was able to continue winning at that point in his life, But Cruz is too quick, man. He's kind of like, he's Anderson Silva-like in his movement, and he's got good head movement. He's very good at avoiding damage. He's very good at just kind of making people look silly out there, you know? I don't see Faber going down to 135, taking Cruz down. You know, he's going to be smaller, but maybe he'll have some strength. Who knows? I don't see him taking him down. He wasn't able to take down Jose Aldo. He wasn't able to beat Mike Brown. So I don't think he's going to really do much to Cruz. I think Cruz is going to be able to keep the fight standing and possibly maybe even take Uriah down. But, you know, that's the thing. Like, Uriah always has that wrestling pedigree to help him out. You know, you would know. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, you know, I mean, after what we've been seeing Cruz do, I mean, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, what he did to Brian Bowles to get the belt, what he did to Joseph Benavidez, what he did to Jorgensen. I mean, it's just been like, wow. And he's been looking really good. So it's really going to be interesting to see what takes place in this fight. I mean, and of course, a lot of people know there is some bad blood in this fight. A lot of things have been said. The odds makers do have also Cruz, to be quite honest, as a slight favorite in this one. So I think the main thing is going to be is Uriah Faber going to be able to take down Dominic Cruz, and is he going to be able to keep him there? In the end, I do think, though, that I don't know. I think I'm going to have to give Cruz the benefit of doubt on this one. I think somehow he's going to be able to come out with a win and keep his belt.
Another thing is that Cruz is making his UFC debut. Faber made his debut at March against Eddie Wineland to become the #1 contender. Mm-hmm. Cruz has not fought in the big show yet, so maybe, who knows, maybe Uriah will kind of have some advantage because in the mental, he's beat him once before and he's already fought in the UFC, which is the biggest show in the world. Yeah. So Cruz might have some obstacles to overcome, but I still see Cruz coming out victorious.
Yeah, very true. And in fact, that's an interesting thing of the main 3 events in this card, is that apparently, looking at the odds makers, all the fights are actually fairly close, with few exceptions, one of which being Melvin Guillard is actually a pretty big favorite over Shane Roller. And also, of course, the odds makers actually do have Ryan Bader as pretty close to a 4-1 favorite on that fight. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Doesn't seem that close to me.
Well, we'll see.
All right, guys, for my predictions of UFC 132, you have Tito Ortiz taking on Ryan Bader. I think Tito Ortiz hasn't won a fight in a while, and I don't think he's going to win one anytime soon. I'm going to give that one to Ryan Bader via unanimous decision using great wrestling. I don't know if he's going to finish Tito, but we'll see. Then you got your co-main event with Wanderlei Silva, Chris Lieben. Wanderlei's coming off a long layoff. Chris Lieben's been more active. I see Chris Lieben possibly winning by decision, but I really want Wanderlei to win. And then you got the main event with Uriah Faber taking on Dominic Cruz for the bantamweight title. I think Dominic Cruz just going to own Uriah Faber for a 5-round decision, making him look silly out there. He's going to use too much movement and speed and be able to avoid the takedown. I don't see Uriah winning this fight at all. So that's my predictions.
All right, guys, now for my predictions on what's going to go down in UFC 132. I do think the Bader-Tito Ortiz fight is going to be a pretty interesting fight. I do think it's going to go to decision, though. I do think Tito, he has been on a pretty crazy losing streak, but he's still not easy to put away. So I see Ryan Bader winning this one by unanimous decision, of course. Now, for the second fight, I do think that Wanderlei Silva, Chris Lieben is also going to be an awesome fight. I do believe Wanderlei has the potential to knock out Chris Lieben, but I do most likely see this one going to decision as Wanderlei Silva the victor. Now, of course, for the main event, I do believe that Dominic Cruz has just been looking like he's been a little too evasive. He's been looking really good. So I think I'm going to have to go ahead and go with Dominic Cruz by unanimous decision at UFC 132. Bam. Well, guys, those are our UFC 132 predictions. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, please be on the lookout for UFC on Versus. Going to be really interesting. Also, the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix is going to be coming down pretty soon as well.
Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.
Go Wolverine!